Hello everyone. Today I will continue telling you the story of the single mother Diệu Hân. I hope you enjoy the video. After a period of studying abroad in a foreign land, Thành gradually realized how much he had changed. It wasn't only the knowledge from books or the lessons learned in lecture halls, but also the way he viewed life, work, and even his own emotions. In the early days, feeling confused and lost in an unfamiliar city, Thành often felt exhausted and wanted to give up. Yet it was precisely those hardships that forged in him the patience, resilience, and independence he had never possessed before. Living far from home, Thành learned to live with discipline, to work with clear plans, and to cherish every small opportunity. He studied while working part-time, meeting many different people and being exposed to new ways of thinking. Each time he faced a challenge, he thought of Diệu Hân, of her gentle smile and the peaceful days they once shared. That image became his motivation to keep moving forward, never allowing himself to stop halfway. Now, as his study abroad journey is coming to an end, Thành has begun preparing for his return home. His heart is filled with mixed emotions: excitement, anticipation, and a hint of anxiety. He wants to return not only as Diệu Hân's lover, but as a man mature enough to build a future with her. He has made concrete plans for his career and for the life ahead, plans he has nurtured throughout his time away from home. Thành believes that the maturity he has gained today is the foundation for tomorrow. Returning to Diệu Hân, he hopes to build a lasting future with her, one where they can rely on each other and face new challenges together with trust, understanding, and a love tempered by distance and time. In the final days before going home, Thành grew quieter. After classes and familiar part-time shifts, he often wandered through small streets lined with stalls selling handcrafted gifts that carried the spirit of the place where he had spent his years abroad. He walked slowly, lingering at each stall, choosing carefully, as if afraid that one wrong choice might fail to convey all the longing he held for Diệu Hân. In the end, Thành chose a small but refined gift, something he believed that once Hân saw it, she would understand how deeply he had thought of her. He also carefully wrote a handwritten card, each line neat and simple, yet sincere. There were no flowery words in it, just a promise that he would return, stay by her side, and walk with her into the future. Thành didn't tell Hân about his return date. In every video call, he still asked about her as usual, listening as she talked about the ordinary details of life: the garden, the flower shop, the peaceful afternoons. The more he listened, the more restless he became. The more he longed to stand before her, to see her real smile instead of one through a screen. The night before his return, Thành neatly packed the gifts into his suitcase. He closed it, resting his hand on the case for a few seconds, as if reminding himself that this trip was not just about returning to a place, but about returning to the person he loved most. In his heart, the image of Diệu Hân suddenly seeing him standing before her appeared vividly, a quiet surprise, yet powerful enough to make both their hearts tremble. On the flight home, Thành leaned back in his seat, gazing out the window. The clouds drifting slowly outside seemed to carry with them a long stream of memories from his time away. He suddenly realized his heart was beating faster than usual, not from fatigue, but from the rising excitement within him. Thành eagerly thought of Diệu Hân. He imagined the moment of seeing her in person, hearing her familiar voice without a phone screen between them, standing so close, so very close. The lonely nights abroad, the hurried calls because of time differences, all of it now gathered into each breath he took. The suitcase beneath his feet trembled gently with the motion of the plane. Inside were the small gifts he had quietly prepared. But what Thành most wanted to bring back wasn't inside it. It was his maturity, his plans for the future, and his determination never to make Hân wait again. As the plane began to descend, Thành smiled softly. In his mind appeared the image of Diệu Hân standing in the familiar flower shop, sunlight tangled in her hair, her eyes gentle. Just thinking of it warmed his heart. The long journey was finally coming to an end, and ahead of him was the person he longed to see most after so many days apart. The plane touched down, a slight vibration passing through the seat. Tan clenched his hand lightly, his heart pounding harder. When the cabin door opened, familiar air rushed in, carrying the faint, humid scent so characteristic of home. In that single moment, his eyes stung with emotion. He walked slowly toward the exit, pulling his small suitcase behind him. The airport was crowded and noisy, but to Tan, everything seemed blurred. He heard announcements over the loudspeaker, the clatter of luggage, hurried voices calling out. Sounds of everyday life, intimate and real. For the first time in a long while, he truly felt that he was home. Tan paused briefly at the exit and took a deep breath. Only one name filled his mind, Diệu Hân. He imagined her face when she unexpectedly saw him, with no warning, no preparation. The thought curved his lips into a slight smile, his heart fluttering with both excitement and nervousness, like a first date. He unlocked his phone. The lock screen was still a candid photo of Han taken in the flower garden. Tan didn't call or text. He wanted to preserve the surprise completely, to appear before her in person, without any prior notice. Stepping out of the airport, the midday sun shone brightly, dazzling yet warm. Tan pulled his suitcase toward the parking area, a clear feeling rising within him. This journey was not just a return after studying abroad, but a return to begin a new chapter. And at the end of that path, he knew Diệu Hân was there, waiting for him with all the gentleness and patience she had carried for so long. That afternoon, Diệu Hân's flower shop was as peaceful as it had been on countless other days. The late-day sunlight slanted gently through the glass door, casting thin, delicate streaks of light across the wooden floor. The air was filled with a soft floral fragrance, the faint sweetness of roses, the warm richness of chrysanthemums, blended with the familiar scent of fresh green leaves. Han stood near the entrance, bending slightly as she rearranged a vase of flowers, her gentle hands carefully adjusting each stem, as if even the slightest misalignment could disrupt the harmony. Her thoughts were filled with ordinary concerns, a few bouquets still missing from tomorrow's orders, several newly arrived potted plants that needed tending, and whether Tan would call that evening. Thinking of him, her heart tightened slightly. The longing was no longer sharp and painful, but quiet and persistent, seeping into the stillest moments. Suddenly, the light at the shop entrance was partially blocked. Out of habit, Han lifted her head, assuming a customer had walked in. And in that instant, everything around her seemed to slow. The sound of traffic outside grew distant, the ticking of the wall clock faded, leaving only the rapid beating of her heart echoing in her chest. There at the doorway stood a man, his familiar tall, slender figure, a small suitcase set beside him, a trace of road dust on his shoulders. His face held a faint smile, nervous yet gentle, as if one more step forward might shatter the moment. It was Tan, not through a phone screen, not in a dream or in the quiet memories Han returned to each night. It was him in the flesh standing right before her. Han froze. The hand holding the flower stem trembled slightly, and soft petals slipped from her grasp, falling silently to the floor at her feet. She blinked several times as though afraid to trust what she was seeing. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear each beat, one after another, reverberating in her chest. Tan? Her voice escaped in a whisper, barely more than a breath, fragile and trembling. Tan looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were deeper than before, filled with love, longing, and a quiet remorse for the long time he had made her wait. He didn't rush forward, only stood there, as if giving Han time to be sure this was real. Then he nodded, his smile slowly spreading, his voice low and warm. "I'm back." Just 4 simple words, yet they were enough to sting Han's eyes with tears. She stepped toward him, slowly, one step at a time, as if afraid that moving too fast might make the image before her vanish, leaving her alone again with familiar longing. Standing close, Han noticed how much thinner Tan looked, how his features had grown more mature and reserved. Yet the way he looked at her was unchanged, gentle, patient, with only her reflected in his gaze. Han couldn't speak. She stood there silently, tears falling as she smiled and cried at once, emotions overflowing after so many days of restraint. Han gently raised his hand and rested it lightly on her shoulder. A soft touch, but enough for Han to know that he was truly here. "I'm sorry," Han said quietly, "for making you wait so long." In the small flower shop, amid the gentle scent of blooms and the fading light of day, their reunion was neither loud nor dramatic. Just two people standing very close, silently feeling the familiar warmth after a long time apart. And in that moment they both understood that every wait, every ounce of patience, had finally been answered. In that brief silence, Dieu Hân was the one who stepped forward. She looked up at Han, her eyes still wet, and as if she could no longer hold back, she leaned toward him. Without words, without needing anything more, Han wrapped her arms around him. A trembling, tentative embrace at first, as though she were afraid of touching a dream. Han paused for a heartbeat. Then he wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, as if letting go would make her disappear. Familiar warmth passed through the thin layers of clothing. Their heartbeats met, fast and real, so intense that Han had to close his eyes. All the longing, all the long nights in a foreign land, seemed to pour into that single embrace. Han rested her face against his shoulder, tears soaking into one corner of his shirt. She didn't sob aloud. Her body simply trembled softly, as if releasing all the quiet waiting she had endured. Han lowered his head, gently resting his forehead against her hair, breathing in the familiar scent, the scent of flowers, of sunlight, of the days he had always missed. "I'm here now," Han whispered, as if afraid to break the moment. "This time, I'm not leaving." Han tightened her arms and nodded slightly in his embrace. She didn't need to hear any more promises. Feeling that he was here, truly here, was enough. After a while, as their emotions gradually settled, Han loosened his hold but kept Han standing close. He bent down and opened the small suitcase beside him. From inside he took out a carefully wrapped gift box in simple brown paper, tied with a pale beige string. "I bought this for you," Han said, his voice slightly hesitant. "It's nothing big, but I spent a long time choosing it." Han accepted the gift with both hands. When she opened it, inside was a delicate bracelet, simple yet elegant, along with a small card. She picked up the card and recognized Tana's familiar handwriting, careful and deliberate, just like him. "Thank you for waiting for me. From today on, I want to walk with you. Not only through peaceful days, but through the hardest ones too." After reading it, tears fell again. Smiling, Han held out her hand. Han understood, gently fastening the bracelet around her wrist. When his fingertips brushed her skin, both of them shivered slightly, a tiny sensation, yet enough to make their hearts flutter. In the sunlit flower shop, they stood side by side without speaking. But in the look they shared, there was already enough love, enough trust, and enough hope for the future they were about to step into together. No more distance, no more waiting, only two hands clasped tightly, ready to move forward as one. That evening the flower shop closed earlier than usual. Han helped Han pull the glass door shut, hang up the small sign that read "Closed early today," and then the two of them sat down on the steps in front of the shop. The street lights came on, golden light stretching along the familiar road. Not too crowded, just quiet enough for one to hear their own thoughts clearly. Han poured 2 cups of hot tea and placed them between them. The warmth spread, easing the faint chill of the night. She sat close to Han, shoulder to shoulder. A very small distance, yet one that brought an unexpected sense of calm. Neither of them rushed to speak. Just sitting there together after so many days apart already felt like a rare luxury. After a while, Han spoke first, his voice low and slow. "Over there. It wasn't as easy as I thought." Han turned to look at him. Han didn't look back right away. His gaze was fixed on the road ahead, where cars passed by and disappeared into the distance. In the beginning, I almost always felt lost, he continued. The language, the pace of life, the people, everything was different. There were nights I got back to my place really late, so tired I didn't even want to open my phone. But I still did, just to look at your picture for a moment. Han quietly took his hand. Tana's hand was warm, a little rougher than before. She squeezed it gently, a silent way of telling him she was listening, that she was there. There were times I thought, Tan gave a small smile tinged with weariness, maybe I should come home early. But every time I thought of you, I thought that if I gave up, then later on I wouldn't be strong enough to stay by your side for the long run. Han lowered her head, her eyes stinging. She hadn't known that during the nights she lay awake missing him. Somewhere far away, Tan had been struggling through things like this on his own. I learned a lot, Tan went on. Not just knowledge. I learned to take responsibility for my choices, to be patient, to stop running away from difficulties. And I realized, I want a clearer future. He turned to look at Han, his expression serious yet gentle. I don't want you to wait in uncertainty anymore. Han took a deep breath. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder, her voice soft but steady. I don't need anything grand, Tan. I just want to have you by my side in the future, to share a meal, to worry about the very ordinary things together. Tan smiled. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. That's what I want too. I want to settle down here, find stable work. One step at a time, but solid steps. I want to build a life with you where neither of us has to be afraid of losing the other anymore. The night breeze brushed past, carrying the familiar scent of flowers from inside the shop. Han looked up at him, her eyes shimmering under the streetlights. Then from now on, let's work hard together, okay? Tan nodded, gently touching his forehead to hers. Yeah, from now on, no more distance between us. They sat there for a long time, not talking much about big plans or grand ambitions, just small things. Dinner, the flower garden, upcoming work, and simple dreams of a future home. Yet it was precisely that simplicity that filled both their hearts with trust, that after all the waiting and trials, they were finally walking the same path. That night, after the shop lights were turned off, Tan stayed. Nothing needed to be said, they both understood. The small house behind the shop was just as it always had been, neat, warm, carrying Dieu Han's familiar presence. Tan set his suitcase against the wall, took off his jacket, feeling as if he had stepped into a space that had been waiting for him for a long time. Han brewed another pot of hot tea. She placed a cup on the table and sat down across from him. The soft yellow light illuminated their faces. No screen between them, no time difference. Just two people sitting face to face, so real that even their breathing could be heard. Does it feel familiar yet? Han asked quietly. Tan looked around, then shook his head with a smile. It'll probably take some time. But I like this feeling. That night they talked softly and slowly. Not big promises, but fragments of everyday life. Tan talked about rushed meals in a foreign land, Han about closing the shop alone at night, about being tired yet still waiting for a call. Sometimes they fell silent for a long while, simply sitting side by side, shoulders touching. But the silence wasn't empty, it was full of peace. When it grew late, Han prepared the bedding. Tan leaned against the doorway, watching her do each small task, a strange feeling rising in his chest, familiar yet new. For the first time after so many days apart, he was staying, not rushing into another goodbye. Before going to bed, Han stood by the bed, hesitated for a moment, then said, "With you here, I feel lighter." Tan took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Me too. It's been a long time since I slept without feeling empty." That first night they slept deeply. No restless dreams, no half-waking moments. Just the steady sound of breathing beside each other. A simple feeling, yet enough to soothe all the days of separation before. In the days that followed, Tan slowly settled back into the rhythm of the place he had returned to. Every morning he woke up early with Han, helped her open the shop, arrange flowers, wipe down the worn wooden shelves. Tasks that seemed small, but to Tan, they were how he gradually placed himself back into this life, unhurried, unshowy. Watching him work, Han sometimes laughed. "You're clumsier than I imagined." Tan laughed too, rolling up his sleeves. "I'm learning from the beginning again." At noon they cooked together. Tan helped wash vegetables and do the dishes, his movements not yet smooth but full of effort. The small kitchen filled with soft laughter, so different from the days when Han had managed everything alone in silence. In the evenings after closing the shop, they sat together to plan what lay ahead. Tan talked about the job he hoped to find. Han shared her wish to expand the flower shop. Neither rushed the other. They both understood that after such long waiting, what mattered most was moving forward together, step by steady step. Sometimes, Tan would simply stand and watch Han water the flowers in the fading light, then say softly, "I want the days ahead to still be days like this." Han turned to him and smiled. "Then let's hold on to them together." Those first days after Tan returned passed slowly and peacefully. Not loud, not needing to prove anything to anyone. Just waking up each morning knowing that the person you love is beside you, that a life is slowly being put back together with love and understanding. That was enough for a new beginning.
Xin chào mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc và một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng rằng mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích những câu chuyện mà mình chia sẻ và đồng hành cùng mình trong thời gian sắp tới. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích kênh của mình thì nhớ bấm like, share và bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe một phút chia sẻ của mình. Mọi người nhớ chia sẻ kênh của mình để cho mọi bạn bè đều biết đến và để kênh của mình ngày càng phát triển và có nhiều video hay hơn cho mọi người xem. Kênh của mình thì đang viết về những người mẹ đơn thân và hiện tại thì mình đang viết về Tiểu San và Hoài ca. Mọi người yêu thích Tiểu San hay Hoài ca thì nhớ ủng hộ video mà mình đăng tải nha. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video lần sau.